What's up, guys? Welcome back to the A to Z series brought to you by TheCardGuyz. We are on episode 18, talking about Olympia, prized fighter, the newest warrior to the world of Wraith, although not for long. I have with me a person who is no stranger to warrior, probably no stranger to any of you. Who better to talk about anything and everything that has to do with warrior, but the man, the myth, the legend, Losh Jau himself. Josh, you're no stranger to the channel, obviously. You're no stranger to warrior. I'm sure anyone who is remotely interested with Olympia probably knows this, but go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself, why you love warrior so much, and anything you want to talk about Olympia.
Sure. Well, I'm Losh Jau, not Losh Jau. We kicked him off the team. He wasn't performing very well. For those of you that know, you know. Anyways, I'm Losh Jau. I play warrior, and the reason I love to play warrior is I think the decision making in warrior is pretty interesting, and I think it creates a more dynamic and back and forth game. Olympia was a hero that really drew me in from heavy hitters. Kasai is cool and all, but I just liked the theme of Olympia and the simplicity of his hero ability. Unfortunately, time has told us that Olympia is not really the greatest hero at the moment. He even got hit by a stray bullet with Cashin getting banned. But I have faith in James White and the development team that they will complete this hero. Until then, we are going to be playing basically generic deck, as you may be able to see by some of the cards.
I mean, generics are good, right? Lots of other heroes have made use of those generics, so I don't see why warrior wouldn't. You brought up his hero ability and talking about gold, with the cash-in ban, so I kind of want to go ahead and jump into that about warrior's identity. With warrior, your hero text is half of the puzzle, as we'll get into. Your weapon selection ends up being just as important or more important, but your basic ground up build revolves around what is it that your hero wants to do. So if you look at Olympia's hero power, he has two keywords on him: wager and gold tokens. So you could imagine that he's a hero that probably wants to wager and probably wants to make gold. So briefly speaking,
you would think that, but
sure. Briefly speaking,
this build does not wager a lot, does not utilize the gold tokens a lot. The actual point of his hero is not really the hero text. It is the prize Galia, the up the ante, the visit the golden anvil. Those are actually more important than his hero ability. His hero ability does help fuel the golden anvil, hopefully for X's 2 or X's 3. But the gold tokens are really not a huge deal. Sometimes you use the gold tokens just to pseudo create a vigor token, but his hero ability at the moment is not really the draw. It's actually the specializations.
So the most important text on his hero card, besides the word warrior, is actually the word Olympia.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. So
and the 4 in the corner. If that was a 3, I don't even know what would what it would be like.
We haven't gotten that yet with adult heroes.
We haven't.
I'm sure one day they'll cook up something, and I really hope they test it thoroughly before they ever do that.
Yep.
So the other half of warrior, then, I guess, which is probably more relevant options than, I guess, Olympia's sad state hero ability currently. Weapons, right? Warrior needs their weapons. So looking at this deck list, it seems that you have decided to bring 2 weapons with you. And they're both pretty unconventional picks, what you might see from some of the other warriors' standard equipment loadout. You are bringing Decimator Great Axe, which to me this screams degenerate fatigue, or value grinding. We'll say the nicer term for it. And then you got another interesting option over here with Jubil, but we'll start with Decimator Axe. Is this your primary weapon in this deck?
Yeah, so Decimator Great Axe is played against a majority of the matchups. The only r- matchups we're bringing Jubil in is against some of the Rune Blades, and it's going to basically combine with CYB. For those of you who have watched the Dorinthia deck tech that I put out recently, a lot of this stuff will look very familiar. The reason, part of the this deck list actually inspired the world's deck list that I took with the CYB Dory, and it's kind of running on the same philosophy as we run Jubil CYB and we just fatigue the Rune Blades because there's no warrior, especially Olympia, there's no warrior that's going to be able to race or match the damage output of Rune Blades. Rune Blades have better equipment and better cards. So the only way to really deal with them is to do what, Enigma did in the at Worlds and basically run them out of threats. And the nice thing is that currently Olympia has several different builds. The predominant build before MST and Rosetta, I would say, would be the Hatchets build. You did see some like Saber builds as well. But dual wield warrior, like Olympia, basically operated as a value based deck. But we've kind of seen the metagame shift, and that type of playstyle is not very good at the moment. So we've kind of decided, like, okay, we're gonna value grind, as you like to say, with the opponent, because if we just try to race them, we won't be able to do it. But we do have a few tricks in our deck to help with that. So the concept of Dory was like, hey, if they try to set up, we just kill them with Dawnblade. Or kill them with Jubil. And Dorinthia's clock was pretty quick. Olympia's clock is not as fast, but he does have options that make him a little bit tricky. He has some odd hits. Up the ante is actually extremely strong because it says target attack. And this thing can combine well with Command and Conquer, obviously, but it also can combine with the prized Galia in ways that a lot of people are not, that could be caught off guard a bit. So basically, he has enough tools, I think, that he can race some decks if they try to set up. I wouldn't say this is like the best racing deck in the world, but we have Felling Swing, we have Sharpened Steel. We can race if we want to, but we also have mono 3 blocks, mono 4 blocks for most of the deck. So
I know with your Dorinthia list, one of the hallmarks of combining the Counter Blessing strategy with the Warrior card pool was the fact that you had a 1-cost weapon. That way that you could attack with your 1-cost weapon and play a game where, do I have the Counter Blessings or do I have attack reactions? Keep your opponent guessing. They might make a mistake around it. With this deck, because you're playing the Decimator Great Axe, you don't have that smooth cost curve as you do when you're playing the Dawnblade.
Correct.
You have it when you're playing Jubil, but obviously you wouldn't be playing Jubil in every single matchup since you have a Great Axe in your list. So how is the deck different than the Dorinthia version because you're playing a weapon that costs 3?
So the CYB basically only comes in with the Jubil. There's no situations where we would be playing Decimator and CYB.
Okay.
And the way that Olympia plays is a little bit more straight up. Basically, you're blocking 2 to 3 cards and you're returning 1 to 2 cards back at them. And you're looking for key synergies in terms of arsenal plus what you draw. So the simplest one is when you draw Command and Conquer or up the ante, you put it into arsenal, you wait for the other piece, and you blow them out. Another small synergy would be something like Sharpened Steel with the weapon, right? Now that's obviously like the most basic one, but there's a lot of little synergies that you'll kind of get to know as you play deck more and more. Like there's a single copy of Wage Gold and Wage Vigor, and these provide extra targets for up the ante. So these are very interesting because these two cards provide the base gold to get things started. If you look at the deck list, other than Prize Galia, you're not really wagering much, right? So these two, basically, you'd like to play both of them, but you don't actually have to play both of them. So you could play one of them, play up the ante on it, make sure it hits, and then you have enough gold for the rest of the game, basically. And so that's kind of the style you're going for. You're just trying to disrupt. You're kind of trying to read your opponent's attack pattern properly, and then send the most damage that you can back, or the most disruption that you can back. And yeah, you're really just utilizing the fact that you can extract consistent value from your cards. You even have copies of like standing order. So like if you get into a situation where you have to arsenal something, let's say your opponent's really setting up and you have to arsenal something, you can still get it out of there with standing order. So there's a lot of little synergies of this deck. This deck, if you have been playing Fab for, let's see, since the beginning of the year, if you remember the calling in Warsaw, there was a Bolton or a pair of Boltons that did very well there. I think they were, it was some Italian players that took Bolton to the calling Warsaw. And the deck looked very, very similar to this. It had a lot more Kano hate, though, because Kano was relevant back then. And it had shunts. But that's where this deck list kind of originated from, was, okay, if Bolton can do this Decimator Great X style, let's see what it looks like when I try to port it into another hero.
And since you're not as weapon reliant, you can play more attack actions and not feel like you're clunking up your main strategy. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the reasons we're playing so many attack actions is, if you think about, okay, what 4 blocks exist in the game, it's like, okay, everybody's like, yeah, Sink Below, Fate Foreseen. But there's actually another one, Test of Strength. And this is actually a very underrated card, I think. Now, normally, I know what a lot of people think. It's like, Josh, you play Test of Strength in a Warrior deck? Are you crazy?
You got some hits.
Now, here's the thing. Yeah, you have some hits. Now, here's the thing. There's another cute card here called Pay Up. I don't think a lot of people know what this card does, but it's very interesting. It says, if a defending hero controls a gold token, this gets overpower. Okay. When this hits a hero, gain control of gold token they control. If you don't, deal 1 damage to them. Right? So this is a 3 for 7. Kind of 3 for 7. But if for some reason they won the Test of Strength, you can get your gold back anyways, right? So I thought that's a really cute synergy. That's if you go to the card database and look up generic 3 blocks that attack for 6, there's basically only 2 that cost 3 or 2. So the ones that cost 2, we know them. They're Command and Conquer, Amnesia, and what was the other one? Weakest Link. I'm actually surprised Weakest Link is not in this deck list. Weakest Link should be in this deck list. Sorry, guys.
Well, have to make some post changes,
Yeah, well, Weakest Link should be here somewhere.
It's a pretty solid card.
Yeah. So that Weakest Link can basically replace any of these, really. Like, you could go down a Standing Order, you could go down a Pay Up, you could go down a Felling Swing. Basically.
The attacks are flexible and based on personal preference or meta stuff, right?
Yeah. But my point is that the 6 power 3 blocks that are generic, there's not very many of them, and Pay Up is one of them, and most heroes cannot run that because that was just a limited card, basically. So yeah. It's cool. So yeah, that's a cute synergy there.
All right, well, let's keep going through the equipment. So we talked a little bit about the weapons. One thing I think people will notice that looks a little bit weird with this equipment suite is that you have 2 copies of this headpiece here. Now,
Mhm.
I assume that's not a typo. You wouldn't make a typo. I'm aware of this little card called Visit the Golden Anvil. Probably one of the
Yep.
neatest effects that they've made in a while. Um, is this card strong in general in Olympia, or do you just play this as a 3 block? If it comes up, it comes up. Maybe in another list where you would build more around it, it might come up more, but you might as well play it, so you might as well have a synergy for it.
Yep.
So why is Prize Galia your duplicate to get back with it, and why don't you have any other equipments and duplicates?
Well, there are other equipments and duplicates. For example, the arm piece. You generally are going to start with Iron Song Versus. You're going to
Yes.
block with it twice, re-equip the bracers. For the chest piece, depending on how you're feeling, you can start either Tunic or Grains. I think in the quicker matchups, you probably start with the Grains. Slower matchups, you'll start with Tunic, and then eventually you get into a situation where you'll block with your Tunic and re-equip Grains. Basically, how you use Visit the Golden Anvil, you combine it with Refraction Bolters. So you swing your Great Axe. They don't block because who blocks Great Axe? Bolters triggers, you blow them up, and then you re-equip your bracers, your chest piece, and your Galia again. Now, you might be like, hey, Josh, why don't you have another bolters in your list? Well,
You've
the
got
main
Nolan
reason is
boots.
yeah, you could equip your Nulrian boots if you're swimming in gold. But generally, you want X to be 2 or 3. I found that X being 4 is like you generally don't have 4 gold. Let's just put it that way. You generally have 2 or 3 gold. You generate 2 gold from the Galia, and you generate 1 gold through an up the ante, and generally you have 3 gold. So uh, that's basically how you use your equipment. Getting the Galia again can allow you to cycle into another. Well, there's no point in playing a second Visit the Golden Anvil. So you're basically just using the Galia to wager again so that you can use the gold to turn them into vigor tokens, basically. Um, the way that gold operates and the way that the grains of Bloodspill operate is that they allow you to smooth out your turns, basically. If you have a now there's not a lot of yellows in this deck, so it's not really like turning yellows into blues, but sometimes you can turn enough stuff that you can play a Command and Conquer, or that you can add an extra mode to up the ante. So that's basically how you use the gold in the late game. Unfortunately, there's no cash in anymore, so
Yeah, there's
you
not really
basically
as
just
much. There's not a payoff for it, right? So the gold has to be
yeah,
the payoff. So
yeah,
fixing bricky hands, maybe
yep,
generating a resource. If you need, like pitch a blue into it and you draw another blue, you can sink that resource into grains, or like you said, another up the ante um, mode or
yep,
something. The goal's the payoff, right? If
yep.
if cash in wasn't banned, I assume that cash in will probably make its way into Olympia decks, right?
Yeah, cash in
Yeah.
cash in was a staple, at least a 2 of. You would all, I used to run things like double down as well, just to really generate the gold.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still waiting on hopefully the next set in the expansion slot. They give Olympia some love there. They've been helping the mechs out in terms of like, hey, you didn't have AB. Assassins, hey, you didn't have AB. Let's help you out. So hopefully they will give Olympia something that solidifies his kit a bit.
Gotcha. So you're pretty much always
Yeah.
starting on your temper equipment rights. So Iron Song versus and your
Yep.
Galea, so that in case you do get a line with Visit the Golden Anvil, you'll just swap to your whatever you didn't start with.
Yep.
Okay.
It the value of re-equipping your stuff is actually not that high, but like in terms of like raw value, it's like you could have blocked with the golden anvil, you could have cycled some gold, but it does help you against on hits, since having an extra set of armor does just it allows you to keep more hands basically. So when you draw that up the ante with the Command and Conquer, you can say no block to the snatch and just shove your armor in front of it.
Gotcha. All right, so with Prize Galia, this is one of the cards that you said was the reason to play the deck, right? It says Olympia on it. We've already talked about the reason why you play Olympia is because he says Olympia on it. There wouldn't be that much other reason. So this is a card that says Olympia on it. You've already talked a little bit about, some of the things you want to do with being able to wager any attack on demand. Is there any other little cool tricks or something?
This is not any attack on demand. This is target weapon attack. Yes. There's a lot of little things that you're going to have to like.
Olympia's so complicated.
Let me, no, he's not that complicated, but let me run through some of the things that could get you in trouble. Okay. First of all, Iron Song Versus can only target Jubil. Okay.
Sword attack. Gotcha. It doesn't work on X.
Grains can only activate if a weapon hits. You knew that. Brainforge Bracers has no text. You're never activating it. Prize Galia says target weapon. Bolters says target weapon. Okay. Now, a couple of nice things. Okay. Fatal Engagement, target attack. So if you have Tunic, you can CNC and then Fatal Engagement. Pretty good. Pummel it home. Up the ante says target attack. Felling Swing says target axe, so you can't Felling Swing into Jubil. So don't do that. Sharpened Steel is a universal one, so that could be anything.
We like those. We like to see it.
Yeah, we like those.
Can't be your attack actions, though.
Overpower only works on weapons. Other than that...
Oh, that's it?
Yep. Other than that, everything else is straightforward.
I think the moral of the story is read your cards. Make sure you know what they do. Especially in this deck, because you might accidentally play a card and it doesn't do what you think it does.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right, well, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it, I guess. We'll go through the attack actions first, since they seem to be what kind of differentiates Olympia from something like a Dorinthia. I know you mentioned that this ends up being just like generic the deck. So a lot of the power level of these cards don't necessarily need to be deep dived into for people to understand.
Yes, I am not going to talk about why Sink Below Fate Foreseen are in the deck, okay?
Command and Conquer, I heard, is a pretty good card.
Yes. This card is very, very nice because it combines well with Fatal Engagement. It combines well with Up the Ante. And once in a while, you will have an agility token, and you can go Decimator Great Axe into Command and Conquer, or Command and Conquer into something else. Not much to think about. Basically, you want to play all three copies out. That's actually what I shouldn't be talking about why the card is good. I should be talking about how to use the card. So this card is extremely important because you have Up the Ante. This is like Command and Conquer is basically the other half to the Specialization. Up the Ante is really good with Command and Conquer. Try it, and you'll see what I mean.
I mean, being able to attack react to Command and Conquer, is pretty good.
I have to say, this is the most obvious thing, though, in the world. It's like, why do you have an extra card in your hand and an arsenal? Or two cards in your hand? Well,
maybe it's Pummel.
I mean, yeah, it could be Pummel, yeah.
Or it could be
the funny thing is that when you're gonna get CNC pummeled, but does it matter? If you're not running Reinforced Line, you just say, okay, sure, it happens. So it's basically what happens here. Is that they know you're gonna up the ante the Command and Conquer, but what are they gonna do?
You said something about agility tokens. How is this deck creating agility tokens?
Up the ante can wager an agility token.
Gotcha.
That is the only method to generate an agility token. The main way you would use that is on CNC or E-Strike.
And you would choose like E-Strike, draw a card, or something like that?
Yep.
Or I guess if you want to push, you'd choose the damage.
Either one.
Yeah. So CNC, good card. E-Strike, good card.
Yep.
Again, Fate Foreseen, Sink Below, don't really need to talk about it. We're playing a defensive deck that needs to grind out your opponent over a long period of time because, well, you just don't have access to powerful enough turns that could kill someone quickly. So you need to slow the game down so that you can actually actualize the the play lines that will get you value over the long course of the game. So you need cards that block well. So Sync Fate, they're staples. You're also playing Test of Strength, as you've already talked about a little bit. You have some attack actions, so you're able to clash okay. Definitely not as good as like a Victor deck who's designed to clash would be. A lot of your non-attack actions are, warrior cards that don't have an attack value. So most of the time, you're probably either going to be like winning your clash or you're going to always lose it if you flip one of those warrior attacks. But as you said,
that's what pay up is for.
That's what pay up's for. You make him think like you gave him a little treat, only to take it away later.
Yep. And the wager, like, let's be honest, guys. If you're playing Olympia, you're playing him for fun. And one of the funniest things is Test of Strength. Oh, I gave you a gold token. So sad. And then the next turn, you say, "Hey, pay up. give me back."
Especially if they're low and the overpower randomly kills them.
Yep.
It's just like the funniest combo.
Yep. And if you ever up the ante of pay up, oh
yes,
very nice, very nice.
Money machine.
Yep.
All right, so that's pay up. Standing order. You want this to kind of smooth out your turns, correct?
Yes, it is generally it just provides insulation on whatever you arsenal. Also, once in a while, you can block a break point depending on the situation. Also, you can swing your great axe. Bolter standing order is an okay way to use your boots as well. If you've already used a golden anvil, so simple but effective.
I mean, it's a 0 for 4, right? Like, it's got a decent enough floor.
Yeah.
How often do you find yourself arsenaling cards that get stuck there? Or cards you just happen to have an extra card that, you don't really want to put in arsenal?
It either it's going to happen none of the time, basically when you're dealing with a very, very aggressive decks, or it's going to happen very, very often when you're dealing with setup decks. Now, there's very few setup decks. The only real setup decks in the current meta is Viscerive, Lorien, Verdance. Most decks are going to be trying to push damage turn after turn after turn. So standing order is generally just blocking for 3, and maybe you flip this off a Test of Strength and you're happy. So this card could easily be replaced with Weakest Link.
The Weakest Links, yeah. Might be better.
I don't actually know if Weakest Link is like super strong in the current meta, but I think it combines well with Up the Ante. So I think you could run a couple, maybe 2 standing orders, 2 Weakest Links would be fine. Something like that.
But the purpose of the standing order and the setup decks, just to make sure we're getting this right, is that if they don't do anything to you and you don't need to block and you end up with a hand full of, blue cards that aren't necessarily great, and the most you can do is just swing your axe rather than IP yourself with these cards you don't want to arsenal. You feel free to just arsenal one of them, and then eventually you're going to find a standing order that can let you filter it out for a little bit of value.
Yeah, most decks would have, or most warrior decks would have Crown of Providence to deal with this. But because we have Prize Galia, we don't have access to Crown of Providence. So standing order basically just allows us to arsenal whatever we want and get away with it.
And then you said that you're playing the 1 copy of Wage Gold and Wage Vigor. Is there a reason why you're only playing 1 copy of these cards?
We basically never want to see more than 1 at the same time, because that means the block value of our hand is lower. Also, we can't deploy both on the same turn, and we don't need more than 2 of these 3 for 7 wage cards because we don't need that much gold. We don't have cash in, so all we're trying to do is hit a golden anvil for 2 or 3, and then move on with our life. And you might, I think I know a follow-up question that you're going to ask is why Wage Vigor instead of Wage Agility or a second Wage Gold?
You read my
mind.
The
And the reason is Wage Vigor allows you to cycle a Vigor token from turn to turn to turn to turn. So let's say you have a Vigor token and you block 3 cards, you swing your Great Axe, it hits, great. If you have Grains equipped, you can cycle that Vigor token to the next turn and kind of just keep doing that. And that one extra resource can help you convert a Command and Conquer Fatal Engagement. It can help you convert a Command and Conquer up the ante. It can help you, when you draw a blue, but you don't draw a second blue and you want to make a play. Yeah, basically that one Vigor token can... It's not uncommon to see it cycle for 5 turns until you need it.
Yeah, and if you make the assumption that no one's really going to be blocking your axe, because, well, they're probably not going to be blocking your axe, it's pretty free to continuously pump that into grains and save it for when you actually draw a hand where it's relevant. Yep. Okay, yep. I see the logic. I like that. Mm-hmm. I think that was it for your red attack actions. You have some ripple aways in here. Technically, this is an attack action, but I don't think it's in here because you're attacking people with it.
No, this is just to get enigmas once in a while, or make a KO sad when they cast bones or
utility blue. It's pretty solid against Viscerai.
It's decent against Viscerai as well. It's just blue block 3 that has an attack value, so you can flip it off a test of strength.
Okay.
You could also run last ditch effort. I think that would also be fine too. But I don't think there's any matchups that's really going to get that long. But if you don't have the ripple away, you can run last ditch effort.
Well, this is a generic 3 block, so it's got to be in the deck. This is what the motto of the deck is. If it's generic and it blocks 3, we're putting it in here.
Yep. Yeah, there's one more card, Battlefront Bastion Blue. This is a card that, it's actually kind of interesting because there's certain decks that come in with a 2-value attack in the middle. So we have Ira, Dash.io, Aurora,
Zen.
I guess Enigma as well, Zen. Like, there's a lot of things that splitting the defense value is actually quite nice. And having some 2 blocks in the deck, I think is fine actually overall.
It's pretty solid against assassin daggers as well.
Yes, yeah. It's just a card that I think we first saw this in Pablo's. I think it was a Bravo deck, or I'm not sure, but that was the first time I saw blue Battlefront Bastion. I was like, oh, that makes it's like a blue Fendel's Fighting Spirit. Just like, oh, that.
It's like kind of a 3 block, but not really. But it has some cases where it's better than just being a 3 block when you actually get to space the damage out on breakpoints or the damage prevention out.
Yep. Okay. Exactly. So this is where the whole idea of like being able to predict how your opponent is going to attack. That's really the basis of a lot of warrior decks at the moment. Is you got to defend properly. And Battlefront Bastion, that's all you got. Hold the line. These are all, tech cards that help you defend properly.
Yeah, you want to drag the game out and maximize value. And if you do that and miss block and leak value when otherwise, you shouldn't be, like, you're going to put yourself in a deep, deep hole, right? So it is a play style that rewards optimal play over long periods of time. So practicing and knowing when it is correct to block and how to block against different types of heroes will definitely improve your performance with these types of decks. So I want to talk a little bit about Counter Blessings. You said that you only play this with Jubil, and I know in your Dorinthia version of this type of deck, or at least Counter Blessings Warrior, you were playing Jubil for the Runeblade stuff. So I'm curious, what matchups are you playing Counter Blessing in that aren't arcane focused?
I would own the math doesn't make sense if you bring in Decimator Great X plus Count Your Blessings. That means you're basically not defending. I would only play CUIB paired with the Jubil. And so for the Dorinthia deck, I played that against Florian, Viscerai, Aurora. I did not play it against Vincent, because Vincent actually you had to kill Vincent or Vincent would OTK you. So similar strategy here is against Aurora, Viserai, Florian. I would bring in Jubil plus the CYBs. Basically, fat deck, bring in everything other than the snag. The Sigil of Solace can get you into trouble against the Aurora, so maybe not against, you don't bring that in against Aurora. But against the Viserai and the Florian, I'd bring in every card other than the snag and just try to run them out of threats. And Decimator Great Axe operates like Dawnblade.
So matchups where you need to be the aggressor, or as aggressive as you can be, I guess.
Yes, I feel like you don't need CYB against the other decks.
Okay.
I feel like CYB is extremely good against Rune Blades because it allows you to block their arcane damage. And if you break down how a Viserai and an Aurora deck looks like, even a Florian deck, I was fatiguing Florians. They were pissed off when they're like, how is this even possible? I was like, well,
they have a
1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3. Yeah. They were like, I have a 1 for 5 weapon at the late game. How can you fatigue me? I'm like, well, I don't know, dude. But basically, I think CYB is the strength of CYB is that it helps deal with the split damage Rune Blades, and it just runs them out of threats. Like I said, we look specifically at how those decks are built. They have a damage ceiling. They don't have infinite damage. So the best that Viserai could do once he's out of cards is make a Rune Chant swing.
Yeah, it's not like some Ember.
That's not going to do anything.
Something like Emberblade Fi in the past, where against Fatigue Oldhim, they would set up a loop where they would, infinitely use Phoenix Flames and Emberblade plus Shuko Trigger to kind of continuously deal some amount of damage every turn forever until the Oldhim or whatever Fatigue deck actually would run out of cards. But the Rune Blades don't really have the ability to do that.
Aurora literally becomes swing for 1.
Yep.
So like Decimator Great Axe or Jubil, and at that stage of the game is going to kill them very fast. So I think it's just about getting through their whole deck. And the nice thing is that with the blue CYB being banned, I don't think anybody's going to be running hate cards anymore. So that actually makes this strategy better. So yeah,
very well could. Besides the hate card thing, right? Because that depends on people's reception to how they think the ban affected it or not. Do you think that the removal of the blue counter blessings have a significant impact on the strength of it? Like I said, other than the hate card thing?
Yeah. I think it makes the game a lot closer, but I still the margin of victory against the Viserai and the Aurora decks with the CYB Dory deck, I was in the mid-20s in the late game. So I think if we just take out the blues and we just block with them instead of extracting 7, 8, 9 value, we're just extracting 3, 3, 3 value. Yeah, that hurts. That's 15 value lost, but the margin of victory was much larger than 15. So I think, they're going to get us really low into the, like, a lot of these Aurora Viserai games, you drop down to like 4, 3 life. It's very common, but you have to get out of that with CYB. So I also think that the disruption level of this deck is actually it's like an interesting point. One of the ways that very, very good Aurora or Viserai players would beat the CYB Dory deck is that they would just go for the Flicker Wisp combo, or they would go for the 9th Blade combo. And this deck actually is a little bit more insulated against that, because if they try to set up, well, things like Command and Conquer up the ante is just going to mess with their plan, right? You could also counter pitch stack with Command and Conquer, basically, if you start noticing that they're going for the Flicker Wisp combo. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance.
They also have to be careful is, throughout the game, you're probably going to be swinging your weapon at them, here and there whenever you get excess cards. And they're almost surely not going to block it because they need to present as much damage as possible. So their life total is going to, diminish as well throughout the course of the game. And if they didn't run hot enough, it could be the case that by the time they reach that end game state where they've set up these power turns to try and kill them, they might not have the life total to just like survive a full pivot by you if you want to just say no blocks one random turn, take some damage and then throw back 10 at them or something, or a big attack reaction or something.
Yeah. I also want to point out something that this is actually kind of hilarious, because the Dory deck, she would swing Jubil, and the on hit would be you make a Spellbait Aegis token. That was already fairly annoying, right? Look at this deck. What happens when I pitch a blue and swing Jubil, Aaron? What am I threatening? I'm threatening Grains, Courage, Spellbait Aegis.
Or you mean...
Yeah, so you activate Iron Song versus swing Jubil, and let it hit, you activate Grains.
And then the next turn, your Jubil would come in for 4.
You don't have to pitch anything. Pay for it.
You get another Spellbane because they're probably not blocking 4.
So that was actually a play pattern that I really wanted to include Iron Song versus in my Dory list, but I just did not have the slots for it. But now, so beautiful. So beautiful you can include it here.
Yeah, that's a great turn cycle combo where you pitch a blue to do that, and then the next turn you can threaten it again, or you threaten the Jubil again without having to pitch at all. It lets you block more often while still, gaining life with your Spellbane.
Yep, exactly.
That's sweet. All right, so looking at the warrior cards in the deck, you're playing the 6 Felony of the Swing because you're an Axe deck. This is one of the better ways that Decimator Axe has to actually utilize hands when you don't need to block. Is this card part of the reason why you play Decimator Axe over another option in your non-CYB version?
Felling Swing is just a card that allows you to speed up the game if you need to speed up the game. And it's good if you go second. One of the issues of the deck is that sometimes you can't even use your whole hand on turn 1 if you're going second. So this kind of helps you with that. This is a card you may not be playing that much of, depending on the situation. Generally, extracting 6 value from 2 cards is not amazing, but on the Great Axe, it's the math is a little bit more fuzzy because it speeds up the clock.
Yeah, a lot of heroes will take an off turn, trying to think that you can't do anything, and then you punish them by having the hand that's like, Felling Swing and 2 blues and a Sharpened Steel, and then you attack for 13. And, they're like, dang, my setup turn, it's been thwarted.
Yep.
And they all block 3, right? An important aspect of this type of strategy. So Sharpened Steel, self-explanatory, blocks 3 most of the time, 0 for 3, works on all of your weapons, solid card.
Yep.
We didn't really talk about that all you got, but again, it's kind of like another part of the generic defensive suite you're playing. When you're playing against aggro decks, like you said, a lot of them will randomly attack for 2. Auroras, Iras, and whatever. So being able to block that and effectively, gain 2 life more or less without using any cards because you're able to prevent a small damage number that you don't really want to like fully block with a real card and get it back, is pretty decent. Do you ever think it's awkward with this card where, the card you get back you don't really have a good use for most of the time? If someone's attacking all on one chain and then they break it, you draw a card. Like, how often can you actually use that card for something?
So normally, I just assume that I'm going to get a random card, and the blue count in this deck is a little bit less than 50%. So Normally, I just presume that I'm going to get a blue, or standing order can convert fairly easily uh, into that. Or if you have a vigor token, the yellows convert, or
Or if
an
it's
E strike if you have
random
another
red,
card.
if it's a random red, you can always just arsenal it and
Correct.
save it for another
Yeah.
turn or whatever. Okay.
And if you keep an X, let's say you have a blue in your hand, and then that's all you got, and you draw another random card. You just look at the deck list. A lot of the things that you draw are fine. Like you draw Wage Gold, Wage Rigor, sure. You draw a Sharpened Steel, sure. You draw something else, you just arsenal it, or you turn it into a Vigor token with grains. In terms of smoothness, getting a random card from that's all you got, I think it's fine, especially if you have another blue.
Yeah,
it's very unlikely you brick.
You always draw Ripple Away. This happens to me every time I make a Ponder and Enigma. I always draw Ripple Away, and then I pass turn with a card in my hand, and I'm really sad.
That's why we have standing order. We could just arsenal Ripple Away, and then we can standing order it later. So,
I think that was
standing order actually extracts extra value from your deck. Like in terms of raw blocking value, it's kind of like Shunt in that like it's a 1-card block 5.
Yeah, it's like
one card block. Yeah,
it's a reverse E-Strike where, if you're thinking about total deck damage, E-Strike is potentially threatening 7 damage off of 1 card used, where standing order gets to present 6 or block 5 with 1 card used. So in matchups where deck math matters.
Yeah. And if you've ever blocked a CNC with standing order,
feels good. Yeah, I'll take one. No problem.
Sure. Yeah, take one. Put this down there.
All right, so we'll talk
almost as good as Sigil from Arsenal.
Oh yeah, Sigil's one of my favorite arsenals for sure. Yep. You get to use it exactly when you need it. All right, so going through some of the blues, we already talked about Battlefront Bastion, Fatal Engagement. You said that this works on any attack, so you can be a little cheeky with it with your Command and Conquers or something like that. It could randomly kill people in the end game. Is the attack action synergy the main reason why you're deciding to play, more of this card and not like the blue overpowers or more blue overpowers?
It's mainly because it just has a little. You could go 2-1 the other way. I think it's fine. I think because there's a few more attack action cards, this just synergizes a little bit better. You also have a very common scenario is that you're playing Jubil, you had to give them your tunic. So in terms of like late game kills, it's 1-cost weapon plus 2-cost attack react. So that's a fringe case, but it can happen at the end of the game.
Okay.
This is a complete flex slot. Like you want to change this, go ahead.
Glint the Quicksilver, Warrior staple, blue 3 block. Probably gonna play it. How often does the go again draw card like text on it really matter? It comes up a lot in like something like Dorinthia, but I don't know how often is like someone blocking you and you care to give it go again.
So you will realize very quickly whether your opponent is blocking your Death Grade X or not, and they either block it quite often or they don't block it at all. So you'll know whether or not to block with Glint or not. Drawing a random card is not the greatest thing in the world. It's I don't even know if this, to be honest, this should even be here, but it's a pretty good warrior card, so I guess this can stay.
We need to find some more generic cards to put in instead.
Yeah, we need to put in some
nasty surprise or
some
something.
more.
I don't know.
Yeah, nasty surprise. Yeah,
we'll find some more 3 blocks put in there.
Yep. It's mainly just so we can see Dorinthia's face once in a while. So
as a reminder of what you could be playing instead, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, we got hold the line. Is this
Yep.
still in here and relevant for something? I know that with high octane ban, Do is not going to be quite as prevalent probably. And
Yep.
if they are, they might not be drawing a million cards quite as consistently.
Yeah,
Um,
this is another slot that could be changed. Hold the line has its stock has gone down over the course of this year. Um, I kind of just wanted a little bit more extra defense. When it's good, it's good. But you could switch
still
this.
viable
You
against
could,
Brute.
yeah, it's still viable against Brute. I don't know how much Brute we're actually going to see in the meta. I think there will be some, so having one or two, I don't think really hurts the deck.
Yeah.
In terms of like generic card ranking, Hold the Line has got to be like number 9 or 10, right? So it probably makes, you know, Olympia's generic dot deck.
We got one overpower. How
Yeah.
many how many people have you killed with this one blue overpower?
Uh, quite a bit, but normally, it's they die to up the ante
Hmm.
because you normally pitch stack the up the antes with other blues, and then you just get. Now, here's the thing: one up the ante is good. Two up the antes together see each other, so the damage actually gets kind of insane. So
Okay, so the
sometimes you could
wagers
pitch
all
stack it.
stack, right?
Yeah, yes, the wagers
Yeah.
all stack, and then the second up the ante sees that you've wagered 6 times, and so it gives it +6. So there are some cute things that you can do at the very end of the game. That's kind of like why we don't need last ditch effort. Last ditch effort is up the ante, blue, 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 and you sling your decimator grade X, pump everything into it. Uh, that's your last ditch effort.
Yeah, that's a pretty good hand of all blues.
Yeah, you have to pitch deck that obviously, but it's not hard to do that with you're running Decimator Grid X. So,
Yep. All right, we already talked about Ripple Away. Truce,
yeah,
generic 3 block blue card. We like
yeah.
these.
I think this is very underrated. This is a good card on turn 0. Uh, Other than turn 0, obviously not that great, but
If you have this
I
card in
can't
your
find better blues.
if
So
if you have this card like in the middle of the game, let's say, how often do you find that? Let's say you got to keep 2 cards more or less for free, right? Maybe your opponent didn't
yeah.
attack you as much.
Uh-huh.
Do you find yourself that you would rather play out the truce than swing your axe in those cases?
Yes, because this would extract 6 value instead of 4. Assuming I already had an arsenal, I think I would play it out. But Bruce, in terms of blocking order, is one of the first cards to be blocked with. So the chance that I have Truce and a blue is not high.
Well, it blocks 3 for a reason, right?
Yeah, blocks 3 for a reason.
It's a good number to have.
It's the first thing to get put on the combat chain.
And then maybe a slightly better generic 3 block blue card, Warmonger's
Yeah.
Diplomacy. Kind of don't really need to explain it too much. Again, people, it's very good right now.
So
it's been good
the reason
for a
we
while.
play this is because we like Bolton, and so that's why he's there. So as you can see, our deck has Dory, Bolton, and Olympia. I don't know if there's a Kasai anywhere. Nope, looks like there's no Kasai.
Command and Conquer could be Kasai
Yeah, Command and Conquer could be Kasai. Why not?
if you want to complete the the theme
Yep.
we got going on here. You need to pick up a couple of those. Okay.
Yep. Make sure they're Rainbow Foil as well.
Yeah. All right, Warmonger's good, obviously. All right, let's talk about the blue cards a little bit more. We've talked about them, here and there with some of the synergies that you have with other cards in the deck. It's interesting to me that Olympia has 3 specialization cards, and one of them is equipment, and 2 of them are blue cards. Do you think that that was kind of like a miss, to not give him like a red specialization? Or are these cards powerful enough that, I mean, obviously, you're playing them with Olympia, and we said Olympia Hero Text is good. And Up the Ante is obviously a solid
Yeah.
card, but it's still a blue, right? So are these cards like actually like pushed enough, or are we still waiting for that juicy red specialization?
I feel like the reason they're blues are not because of power reasons. It's mainly because the way you want to utilize the cards is often in the second cycle. So being able to pitch them, pitch stacking with this deck is actually relevant, guys. Just so you're aware, there's no shuffle mechanic in the deck, so you are gonna see your pitch stack because you are a what did you say? What was your nice
Uh,
term for fatigue?
Grindy mid
Val,
range,
yeah,
value
grindy
grind.
value
Yeah.
value extraction deck. um, because you're a value extraction deck, you are going to see your pitch stack, right? And Up the Ante, when you pitch stack it with certain things, is really good. And like I said, that whole double Up the Ante together is like one of the best ways to end the game. So, and Visit the Golden Anvil, like if you see it early, you the more I look at this, maybe you actually don't even need 3 Visit the Golden Anvils. Let's be honest here. But they're having some backup. Why not? I guess, right? Because maybe you have to block with 2 of them, right? Uh, but them being blues allows you to see them in the second cycle when you've generated gold, when you've been able to pitch stack threats or resource cards with Up the Ante. Um, I think if they were yellow or red and they were more pushed, I don't think that actually helps. I actually kind of like them being good blues instead of insane reds.
Because the deck plays to that longer
I,
game plan right
I
now, and
don't.
it kind of sets up.
I also don't know what a red version of Visit the Golden Anvil would look like. Would it have go again and make a gold before you destroy gold? I don't even know how you could make that more pushed.
Yeah.
Um, let's be honest. Visit the Golden Anvil should have had go again. I don't know why it doesn't have go again. Uh,
I mean,
Victor's has go
if
again,
you
and
compare it to
it's
Visit the
so much
Goldmane
better.
Estate, like
Jesus,
that
yeah,
card has go again, and it like draws Victor a
yeah,
card.
yeah. So, like I said, we have to blow our bolters just to re-equip them.
Yeah.
But that's just warrior things. As for Up the Ante, a red version of Up the Ante, I don't even know what that would look like.
Sure.
I can't even imagine what that would look like. So, uh, yeah, I do hope he does get some red specializations, but uh, the highest thing on my list is giving him a specialization weapon.
Yeah, because he doesn't
Now,
have a signature weapon,
yeah,
right?
yeah, he does not, and maybe they're deathly afraid of Shiana and Blitz or something. That's why they don't want to do that. But he really does need a specialization weapon, or at least a weapon that synergizes with his kit.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like Dawnblade's not a specialization,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
pretty much tied to the way
yeah,
Dorinthia operates. You could easily make a
yeah.
weapon that synergizes
And
with gold or wager
yeah,
enough that it would be an
yeah.
Olympia weapon.
And you could make it a guardian warrior weapon, and then you could fix Betsy and Olympia at the same time. So
We're cooking.
yeah, we're cooking.
It could be a dual specialization for the wager
Yep,
heroes.
could be.
All right, so Up the Ante. You've already talked about the late game potential with it, some of the sneaky tricks you can do on attack actions. Is there any other like kind of like funny odd tricks or like number breakpoints that you think might be relevant for people to know, or maybe like for an opponent who is playing against an Olympia? Is there anything that any hard and fast rules to play around this? Like, can you play around it? Do you have to count how many resources they have available, how much gold they have?
Up the Ante, I think should be fairly telegraphed. Um, the only thing with Up the Ante that can get kind of tricky is that you could combine this with the Galia. So you get the wager from the Galia, then you get wager from Up the Ante. So then it's +4 instead of +3. But for a majority of the things, it doesn't really matter. That whole +3/+4 is actually more relevant when you run things like Edge Ahead or those one cost wagers, and then you up the ante with the Galia. That brings it to +5, so that plays around Sink Below and all that. But the way this deck is set up, it doesn't go to +5. It'll only go to +4. So uh, the thing is that you're normally playing up the ante on Command and Conquer, so D-reacts are not a thing. So yeah, it should be fairly telegraphed when up the ante is coming. But the thing is, you can't really do much about it.
Yeah, it's such a big blue react that,
Yeah,
I mean, they either can fully play around it or they can't. I mean, if they like super overblock on it, then you can just do it again later.
Yeah, you just do it next turn. So, yeah.
All right, let's see. Blues. Lastly, you got a couple of snags in here. This is, I assume, for new.
Yep. You could also mess up a Unga Bunga Guardian's Day. Mess with Rouse and Pummel and all that. But yeah, basically just to mess with new a little bit.
Is new a difficult matchup for this deck? I figured that like a deck that blocks super well and throws Decimator Axe every turn probably wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I just dislike new, so added some.
You just want to make him mad. Whenever you play a snag on him, like, why do you have this in your deck?
It's like, yeah, I just have two of them.
Is this deck weak to other CYB decks at all, in terms of, being able to present enough damage to kill them, or do you think you have enough like game in the long run to maybe outvalue some of them?
I feel like Decimator Grax has to be way up there in terms of cannot be fatigued. Like, in terms of the CYB decks at the moment, like, I think this would be fine against CYB new. Obviously, this deck is completely garbage against Enigma. We don't need to talk about why or that matchup. If you run into Enigma, go get lunch, okay? Just it's fine. But like, other than like CYB Bravo, I would also think that this is fine. I mean, this deck is kind of cosplaying like Guardian, to be honest. So I think a lot of matchups would be fine. The Great Axe actually is very difficult to negate its damage output. There's also, if people are not familiar with the mechanics of Great Axe and they block with their temper equipment, then
it dies, right?
Yeah. Well,
no, actually, Axe is not an equipment card.
Yeah, so they have to block with it. They have to block with an equipment in the earlier chain, and then the Decimator Great Axe is defended
by like a random.
And then you target the previous chain. That's what you could do. But that's a very niche case, but it can happen.
Gotcha. Or if they decide to block with their equipment and a card at the same time or something. Like if they're trying to fully block it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess dash is probably not great either, right? Like a CYB dash is setting up a bunch of pistol items.
Oh yeah, that's
it'd be tough to pressure them.
I presume that dash IE will LL soonish.
Eventually.
Even though she got high octane removed, I think there'll be enough degenerates running slab dash that she's going to get 15 points and get out of here.
There's been kind of a pattern with all these heroes like sitting at 998 points for like a whole season.
Yep.
We'll see.
I will say that once Jagged Edge comes out, I think this deck does get better against Enigma. You basically would just sub in the 3 Jagged Edges for, I mean, probably there's a lot of cuts that you could cut. I mean, you could cut a Sigil, you could cut a Test of Strength, you could cut a Pay Up, like Standing Order, whatever. But yeah, adding Jagged Edge would help a bit.
Yeah, this card seems very, very powerful into
Yeah,
Enigma, just
says
for like
target weapon.
warrior in
Yeah.
general.
Yep, this is
Um,
a card that thank God this says target weapon. I cannot. If this had said target dagger, target sword, target axe, target one-handed, target two-handed, I would have been so sad. So
yeah.
now I would have been happier if this said target attack, but we
Hmm.
can't have everything in life.
That might be a little too good.
That might be too good, but that's why up the ante is good. It says target attack, guys.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the Olympia deck in the current meta. With a new set on the horizon, we got the Hunted coming up. There's a warrior in that set. Obviously, the warriors seem to, be that they're going to be focused around daggers, as I think the whole set is supposed to be dagger themed, right? So maybe Decimator Axe specifically isn't going to be getting some, direct support from that. But what tools would you be hopeful for in a new warrior set that might sneak its way into a generic warrior pool? We've already seen the Jagged Edge. Um, we saw the other attack reaction, like the modal one.
Yeah. So the one of the issues is that I'm already foreseeing this. We're recording this in the middle of November,
Yeah.
so
Oh, this is Draconic. Never mind.
I I think Warrior's going to get a legendary helmet in the next set. And
It's gonna be
unfortunately,
light
that's
warrior Bolton specialization.
I think it's just going to be a Warrior helmet. The issue
Okay.
is that Prize Galia is so damn good for Olympia that like I couldn't imagine him giving up Prize Galia. It's just too perfect for him, right? So basically, I would like to see some more modal attack reactions, something that gains benefit from if they've defended. So maybe you get one mode. If they defend, you get two modes, something like that. That would help Olympia a lot. I also think just adding a specialization or two would also help tremendously. He did get kind of he caught strays with the cash-in ban. So did Kasai.
Like you said, he needs a
Some
signature
other
weapon.
way, some way to utilize gold other than the golden anvil, I think is going to be important. Um,
Or
it,
just like better ways to
yeah,
wager as well.
yeah.
A lot of the wager cards are, and this is part of
I,
Betsy's
I'm
problem as well. They're just not
also,
that great.
I'm also astonished that there's no mechanic that says you may wager the gold that you have instead of wagering in general, right? Say, like, I'm baffled that that's not a mechanic at the moment. Like,
Right.
as an additional cost for this attack, you may destroy X amount of gold, and then that's the actual wager. Is like, so they have a lot of design space. We'll see where they go with it. They did say that Olympia was kind of like a rushed hero that was kind of like pushed out at the last moment to replace another hero. So him and Betsy are not really complete heroes yet. I do foresee him getting an armory deck. I would not be surprised to see armory deck Betsy armory deck Olympia in 2025.
Yeah, that'd be a great place to put the weapons.
Yes, that would be very, very, very helpful for both of them if they get a armory deck next year. Um, yeah, and I think warrior armory decks I think are great because warrior teaches a lot of fundamentals. So I think like one of the best intros to the game is the Bolton armory deck. So um, here's to hoping.
So I know this deck has a lot of the generics in it because, necessity with his card pool. But,
Yeah.
as we talk about things that we would like to see in Olympia, as he gets more cards and, more of an identity, do you think that the attack action, like hybrid style list, is something that you could see moving away from? Like, would you prefer it if
Yeah.
Olympia was like more weapon focused like
Yes.
Dory is, where you just play a bunch of cards that care about weapon attacks and just don't play all these attack actions?
Uh, so I know there's going to be a portion of viewers that are kind of disappointed that this is a Decimator CYB list. If you want to see a more traditional hatchet-focused Olympia list, I did play Hatchet Olympia in the show matches against Blue Pitch, so you can take a look at those deck lists. I do love Hatchet Olympia, but there's two issues, right? First issue is that Hatchet Dory is just better. And the second issue is that Hatchet Dory is just not good at the moment. So this is the best approach that I can think of for Olympia to be. This is the best way that I could see myself top 8ing a Pro Quest with Olympia. Let's just put it that way.
So if any of you are going to your Road to Nationals and your opponent reveals Olympia against you, assume that they are probably playing some type of Count Your Blessings version.
Could
because
be.
why else would they play Olympia, you know? So don't get blindsided by it, I guess.
Yeah. That was one of the things that we were talking about, and that, like, if I took Olympia to Worlds, smart players would just assume I was on CYB. Whereas if I took Dory, people would be like, oh, yeah, Josh Lau's on Dory. Yeah, okay, yeah, he's probably on Domblade. Yeah. So there was some advantage there to be gained.
Yeah, it becomes very obvious that you might be doing one of these, you know, Count Your Blessing strategies if you're playing a very rogue hero. You know, Betsy's kind of in the same boat. You know, if you bring a Betsy or even Bravo at this point, you know, as we saw, like, you're probably doing something like that in the current meta. So,
and like I said, if Rune Blades, if Florian gets salty that they lost to Olympia, screw them.
it's the win-win, right? Like, no one expects you to win on Olympia, so you know, if you actually do win, it's extra impressive. And
it's extra impressive. Yeah.
If you don't, then you know expectations.
One day I will get living legend points for Olympia. Mark my words.
You gotta put your name on the honor roll.
I will do that one day.
RTN season, you know what to do.
Yep.
Maybe after the hunted, when you get your legendary hat that you won't want to play, because
maybe I'll re-equip it. Okay, I take that back. I start with Galia. I re-equip the legendary helmet. Okay. All right. We can compromise.
All right, Josh. Anything else you want to talk about Olympia?
Nope. Just make sure you play out your up the antes. They feel real good to play.
You got to use your gold. Remember, a gold sitting on the table at the end of the game is wasted. You know, you gotta spend all your money. Don't be greedy.
Yep.
Don't wait. You know, you think you might need it later. Just use it now. You know.
Yep.
Make money, spend money. That's the plan, right?
Make money, spend money. That's right.
All right. Well,
buy all your stuff back at the Golden Anvil.
Buy it all back. All right. Well, thank you, Josh, for this very interesting warrior deck. That is lots of warrior cards. I love warrior cards.
Yep. Lots and lots of warrior cards here. Now, the good thing about this deck is that if you are a invested player in the game, you could build this deck for free, basically.
Yeah, if you're
you probably have CNCZ strikes, you know.
Yeah,
that's all you got just sitting around, some Ripple Away, Struce.
If you're a brand new player and you take this deck list and you're like, oh, this looks kind of cool, and I go on TCG Player and it's $1,500, you're like, why is Olympia so expensive? No one plays them. Well,
it's $1,100. Jesus. Yeah. So this is the I'm an enfranchised player and I want to have fun at my armory. There you go. This deck.
I have every good generic. I want to play them in one deck.
Yep. There you go.
This is it.
Yep. There you go.
All right. Thank you very much, Josh. Thank you, all of you viewers, for watching, hanging out with us. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Magnolia Gaming, Dragon Shield, and Fabric.gg. Make sure to check them out. Links in the description. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of A to Z. Thank you.
Bye-bye.